welcome. It is so good to worship together today. This time of year, let me start one thing out. How many of you are poinsettia? How many of you are poinsettia? I don't know if very few. Okay, so poinsettia. All right. Well, in certain places it's different. It is a wonderful time of year and a great place and time to be right here, Litch. Thank you for that reminder. And I suppose there might even be somebody at home watching because you thought the weather was going to be a little rough. I just want to say to you, it seems to have passed a bit. But even if in the future you're wondering about weather concerns, there is no safer place to be, I'm pretty sure of it, though things can happen anywhere. We have our own tornado shelters implicit to this building right here, so you're in the right place at the right time. I'm glad that you are here. If you are a guest, you may not know, and I know there are a couple. I've seen a family that was from the first church that I pastored. So glad that you guys are here. I just saw, and I don't know if Ryan, if you're here somewhere in this particular service, but a professor from Andrews University where I most previously was. It is wonderful that we get to come together. Family, friends, our guests, welcome. And if you are not a part of our family and don't know, we are in the midst of a series, Ezra and Nehemiah, called R-E, and today, Remain. It's possible that you, and I know we've got some deacons here rattling around, that I don't know whether that was a complimentary way to put it. They are here to serve you. And they are carrying, I see right here, they have with them some of these little journals. They're completely blank inside. They are a gift from us to you. Use it for whatever you'd like, but you might have a note or two that you want to take. So if you're a guest, if you are a child and aren't so sure whether you even know where yours is anymore, maybe you have one but you've misplaced it, or you'd just like another one. We are giving these away freely, happily to you. So just raise a hand as the deacons kind of wander through and ask for another one of these or one of these. We'd welcome that. And as we kind of get started, a couple of things. I'm about to give you something to write down in this. So again, you get to decide what's important, but I see hands throughout the sanctuary, so you're gonna receive those. If you don't mind, a couple of little maintenance things. Turn in your favorite version of Scripture to Hebrews chapter 11. It's a well-walked path, Hebrews chapter 11, right? Faith chapter and so on. We're going to frame our time right there in a minute. I would like to say this too. In the Christmas season, a lot of wonderful, amazing things happen this time of year. Hopefully you get extra time with family. If I'm honest about it, you and I are incredibly blessed. There are people who would give an awful lot to have your bad day. Next week, we are going to receive gifts, what we call gifts for Jesus. They are, if you don't know anything about it, check on either in the bulletin or check it out. But we're bringing gifts for those who have a different life than we do. Jesus left all he had, gave up everything. We celebrate this time of year not because of stockings and elves. We celebrate this time of year because Jesus Christ wanted you. Wanted me in his life so much that he would give everything, and he's inviting you to give just a little something. Next week, bring your gifts for Jesus. Check into the bulletin announcement for that. So a couple of things you can write down. Firstly, a journal question or two. Again, you can use this in a family worship. You could talk about this if you and your spouse spend a little devotional time. But these are just conversation starters. It could be you're on a trip, like my wife and I will be on a pretty lengthy trip to Michigan here in a little bit, and we could talk about these questions. So you can just write them down. We won't have time for you to do much with them today. But firstly, this, something I am called upon to do that requires endurance is... There are a bunch of different ways you can have to endure, right? Some of us are maybe in physically exerting kinds of positions or things that are challenging to us physically. Others of us, it can be mentally. I had a day this last week that was start to finish, meeting after meeting, and squarely in the middle of it, Squarely in the middle of it was a Zoom meeting. I don't know why, but I find Zoom meetings take more endurance than in-person meetings to actually do justice to the meeting. You might have a person that comes to mind, something that you have to endure. That's possible. Think about it, though. Somebody else might be thinking about you. But anyway. And here then, another quick question for you to write down in this journal. Something I wish I never had to do again is, and by the way, the tone of that suggests you probably are going to have to, but something I wish I never had to do again. Whew, I'll put that on a yes, please, take it away, please list. If you're a child or somebody who is interested in this kind of thing, I'm going to give you 4 words, 4-ish words for you to also write in there, and then you could see how many times do these get said, and you could mark a hash mark by these, and they'll come up rapid fire here. And the first is the word remain or main. Nehemiah is kind of the focus of our story in some ways today, and these 2 words, faith and rumors. Remain or main, Nehemiah, faith, and rumors. So we're already up to a couple times each on those. In Hebrews chapter 11, known as the faith chapter to some of us, it's all about faith. Now, by faith, and if you just bounce your eyes down through chapter 11, you'll notice by faith Abel, by faith Noah, by faith Abraham and Sarah, by faith Joseph and Moses, and it'll get to a certain point in this passage where the writer will say, and by the way, we don't have time to talk about everybody. I mean, we're not even saying anything really about Samson and David and by faith, and they're not even including the New Testament. And Nehemiah is not mentioned, but I wonder how it would be written if, in fact, the writer had said, and by faith, Nehemiah. What? I don't know what you think of faith. It's one of those things that's hard to get a really strong grip on. Sometimes I fear that I might look at faith as that thing that the key we twist in the lock that opens the door to the thing I want. Faith is the ability to reach out and grab something that maybe you need. Of course, you know this definition of faith in Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 1. It says this, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Faith is most typified for the cause of Christ in the moments when you don't have the thing. When the doctor's report is not good. When the job does not come. When the answer is a hard no. When it's a scramble, when it's difficult, we often think of faith as being that moment right before victory, and God seems to paint it out this way. It is the thing that allows us to lay claim not to the thing we want, but to the thing we don't yet have, to be able to transport ourselves to a place. By faith, I am a part of the kingdom of God. By faith, I have salvation. Well, then you have all the money you need. You have all the relationships you want. You have the adoration of others. You have, that's not actually what it says. So the question, what would it say? By faith, Nehemiah. We're going to explore the 6th chapter of Nehemiah and do a little digging. Maybe there will be something, I know there's something applicable to my life. I suspect it might be applicable to yours. And so as we launch into this study, I invite you to bow your head, and we're just going to plead with God again to be here to speak to us. Lord Jesus, we sing of you, to you. We proclaim your name. We open your word. We are here so often, though if we're not careful, we can rush past you. We pause. We pause. To invite you to say just what you need to in our lives today. And Lord, teach us the way of faith that is big and bold in the times of need, not because it quickly supplies the want, but because it lays claim to your promises, even when we can't see them. So, however we've come today, we pray that you would grow us in your word in Jesus. Amen. Remain. Of course, what we love about these titles is that, frankly, it can mean more than one thing, right? To remain, to stay. Or it could actually mean that there is a main thing that we have come to get a little disassociated with, that we have lost, and we need to re-up on something that is the main thing. Boy, Christmas, what a time for that conversation, huh? To have lost the core for all of the wrappings. I don't know, maybe you're a parent who has been tempted just to wrap boxes when your children are a certain age, because that's what they actually like, is the unwrapping. Is it possible that you and I, though, are more enamored with the wrapping than the main thing? So in the midst of it, we dig. Remain. Nehemiah chapter 6 is where we will start out. We will launch off. It'll be the home base as we continue on in this conversation, as we discover and ask the question, if there were a passage, a phrase, a text in the 11th chapter of Hebrews by faith Nehemiah, what would it say? There are so many things it could say, but we'll dig a little bit here. So chapter 6 begins this way. When the word came to Sanballat, we've become familiar with Sanballat, Tobiah, Geshem the Arab, and the rest of our enemies. These are all enemies. We've seen that. They have threatened. They have taken up the sword. They have attacked. They have, well, it's just been bad news with these. We'll call them three, but it's many more. The enemies. When the word came to them that I had rebuilt the wall and not a gap was left in it, though up to that time I had not set the doors and the gates. Okay, so time out. This is what we will read at the end of this chapter. Is it takes them 52 days, Nehemiah and all the workmen. 52 days is all it takes for them to rebuild the walls, get the gates set, and have it set up. 52 days. It's crazy. How does this happen? Well, their needs have been supplied. God is with them. Some scholars suggest, well, in some parts of the wall, there was enough wall that they were actually rebuilding onto what was there and broken down. And I think this is probably true for your life and mine too. Even when disaster hits, God usually takes what we have and rebuilds using those pieces to his advantage and his miracle. Other scholars will suggest that one of the things that Nehemiah did so that it would work well, work right, and one of the things that impacted it being done that quickly was to redraw some of the wall lines. And that made it a little bit smaller, a little bit more doable. Surely one of the biggest reasons it's done in 52 days is because of the way Nehemiah organizes the people. Everyone near their home working on the wall as families together. Have you been at a party, maybe you were a participant or you were an organizer of the party, and the party is over and everyone leaves but you to clean up? Compare that to the time when instead everyone took 5 minutes to help. What a difference when others pitch in beside you and beside you. I'm pretty sure that, in fact, there would be people not so good with a trowel or whatever it took to erect this wall who made a difference because they were standing at the wall. It gives you courage when we get to go together. Yes, it is true. You can follow Jesus all by yourself. But it shouldn't be lost on us that God in Scripture repeatedly uses language to suggest that's not his preference. For he makes us a body. He makes us a church. He makes us a family. He makes us together. And I believe you can withstand what you otherwise could not. I believe we can accomplish in 52 days what we otherwise could not as just the sum of the parts when we stand together. But they're not quite done. They're not quite done. All kinds of attack has occurred so far in our study, and today, I believe, I have a suspicion that today come the harshest attacks. Because they're almost done. So now, if there is a big gun left to fire off, we're bringing it now. So Sanballat and Tobiah and Geshem and the whole community, everybody who's concerned, they see they're almost done, but they're not done because until those doors are hung, until they're on, it's not actually done. And you and I, we know you could let off the gas, you could slow it down just at the tail end. Anybody here have a book that's almost read? And it gets put to the side. Almost is just about the same as not at all. And there they are. In the midst of it, today we're going to look at 3 attacks. I'm going to just guess, I'm going to suggest that these, while they are subtle, these, while they may seem small, are some of the harshest attacks on us. You may be thinking, especially because of our history as a faith community and the subject, for instance, of prophecy, the subject of persecution of the church, you may be thinking that the thing that is the harshest, has the most power to separate you from Jesus Christ would be that moment when somebody stepped up and said, you're going to lose your life unless you proclaim you believe not. I'm not so sure that's the harshest attack. I'm not so sure it's the one that would be the most difficult to stand up against, but maybe these 3. So let's check them out. So again, these individuals who are their enemies have heard that there's not a gap left in the wall, the doors are not yet on, and so they are coming with the big guns now. Sanballat and Geshem sent me this message, come, let us meet together in one of the villages on the plain of Ono. Scholars suggest this was probably northwest of Judah by at least 1 day's travel. So hey, look, we've had some harsh words, we've had some difficulties, there have been some problems, we haven't been cheering for you, we attacked you physically. Come on. Let's get together. How about we take you to lunch? And if you don't mind meeting us in Florida for lunch, if you'd be okay with meeting us in Maine for lunch, we'd love that. We'll spring for the lunch. But they were scheming to harm me. So I sent messengers to them with this reply: I am carrying on a great project and I cannot go down. This is not just, hey, I'm the greatest. There's something going on here that's important. And yes, even if I didn't think you were trying to harm me, you were just trying to pull me away from the wall, I need you to know this thing is important and I can't be split off of it. I need to concentrate. We're almost there. This is not the time to let up on our energies. I can't come down. I'm sorry. In fact, why should the work stop while I leave it and go down to you? This is at least a 3-day trip. By the time I take at least a day's journey, we spend a day together. I take another day traveling. But this is 3 days. And by the way, this is a 52-day project. And we're almost there. I wonder if our enemy knows that while we could come with swords, it's easier to come with distraction. That you would not put up with an attack by sword what you would put up with an attack by distraction. Now, I may have my suspicions about you, but I know about me. Somebody comes with a particular habit they want to try to invite me to embrace in my life, it's probably just not happening. But to distract me with something that isn't even particularly morally objectionable? Now that. To create imbalance in my life, to cause me to give up on the best thing by taking something that is an okay or even a good thing? Interestingly, Nehemiah points out two problems with this kind of distraction. Number one, it is taking my attention that God deserves on this thing, I'm bearing down on it, and it is splitting it off so that it doesn't get done. Secondarily, and he'll really underscore this, we'll get a sense that he is absolutely right on about this later, but he has seen the character of these people. He knows what they are about, what they're trying to do, and he senses that they are trying to harm him. And if the latter part of this chapter bears any kind of evidence or truth for us, what we understand is if he comes down from the wall to go to lunch with them, they will kill him. If he comes off the wall, he dies. And I wonder if there isn't some spiritual metaphor for you and me. That when I come off the wall, even for a 3-day lunch trip, if you are suckered into letting go of the calling God has on your life because of bills that need to be paid, because of, we could just go on and on. College students. You know what the devil would like to say to you right now? He'd like to say there's only one thing you should be about, and that's your degree. That's it. And it's a lie. If he can distract you to only be about your college degree now, guess what? He can distract you to only be about the marriage you newly formed a little bit later, to only be about the children who need so much, to only be about the job you need, to get the money you need, to get the thing you need, to get. And if we get used to a lifestyle where we give leftovers to God rather than the very first thing, whether it's in college, whether it's later in life, whether it's as a retiree, you and I, we will walk away from the wall entirely and we will die. This is the enemy. Who knows? You could probably withstand a frontal, sword-wielding attack easier than simple distraction. That's the first one. And he says, hey, I get it. I know this is not for my best good. This is not for honoring my spiritual commitments. This is a distraction. So as Nehemiah continues, the fifth time, this is the fifth verse, and the fifth time, because he did this, Sanballat tried 4 times over. Tried, and each time he gave the same answer. And then the fifth verse, the fifth time Sanballat sent his aide to me with the same message, and in his hand was an unsealed letter. And so he's saying, hey, look, here's the message. Come eat with us. Just eat with us. There's stuff to talk about. Seriously, there's stuff to talk about. And in fact, here is a document that kind of outlines some of what I think we probably ought to talk about. Here's what's in it. It is reported among the nations, and Geshem says that this report is definitely going out there. He says that this is true, that you and the Jews are plotting to revolt, and therefore you are building the wall because of your revolt plans of revolution. Moreover, according to these reports, you are about to become their king and have even appointed prophets to make this proclamation about you in Jerusalem. Here's the proclamation. There is a king in Judah. Now, this report will get back to the king, the Persian king, the one you were the cupbearer to, the one that financed this whole trip, the one who can come and squash you like a small bug. He's going to get this report. So come, let us meet together. There's stuff we can do about this. We can smooth this over. This is a problem. I'm going to suggest to you that this powerful attack number 2, is one that you know well, and probably you've known it from both sides. It's the attack of rumors. A couple of principles I want to just dig around in from this story, from our lives, about how rumors take hold, how they are used, how they are wielded about. Firstly, I want to suggest to you that rumors thrive on anonymity. That's one of the reasons we have such a love-hate relationship with social media, isn't it? Because it is a platform for people to anonymously throw darts and shoot arrows from the shadows. Interestingly, as this letter comes, firstly, it's an open letter. It's an unsealed letter at a time when between two governmental officials, and one is of one culture's government, Nehemiah is the governor of Judah, and so it would be standard practice if they had a message to carry, a warning on your behalf to share, that they would have sealed that. No, we're leaving it unsealed so that everybody gets to read it and know it along the way. This is being said by you, which, by the way, whenever somebody comes up and says, hey, some people are saying this, you should be suspicious that they are one of the people saying this. I have a vivid recollection of one who gave me that warning only to discover that the way it was working is he was going to individuals saying this. Now they are saying this. This desire for anonymity, I know there are times when people's names need to be kept out of it, and it is the right thing to do, but there are so many times that it is not. It is our way to dance around being pinned down with whether or not we're telling the truth. You want to test it? Next time somebody comes up to you and says something like that, say, well, I appreciate that you may not want to let me know who it is, but do you mind if I quote you on that? Flip it to you and me. I ought have biblical reasons to not want my name attached to what I'm willing to say. If we would simply not share those things we are unwilling for everyone to know, I said it, I believe the kingdom would be advanced. But rumor thrives on anonymity. So often, we want to stay anonymous because that gives us more that we get to say. It bleeds into this second principle, which I just want to share with you, the last paragraph from a letter I received a couple of years ago or so. I kept it. I've heard somebody say that if you receive an anonymous letter and you're leading any organization, Dr. Ken Shaw was here lighting our candle here just a couple of minutes ago. There may be a letter or two that would apply to this conversation that Dr. Shaw has or will receive. That what you should do is when you receive a letter that is anonymous, you should just take it and put it in its container and ignore it. But that's not the way it actually works. This letter was filled with crazy stuff, holding me accountable for things that I should be accountable for and things that I don't even know how to be accountable for. And it concludes this way, and I share it to make the point, as we bleed from this comment that rumors thrive on anonymity, to the second real texture of rumors. Here's the final paragraph. I'll just read you this part. It says this: if in the future you allow reprobates, such as, and then there was a name of a person who had actually shared from this pulpit, if you allow reprobates such as so-and-so to spread their cancerous perspectives at the university church, you will be encouraging the fall of Adventism and of our nation. So if you've sensed our nation has gone a little bit off its moorings, you now are able to say you know the guy responsible. And it's sometimes in a single word you pick up this second principle. Sometimes it's in a phrase like that, Pastor Dave, you have the power to cripple all of Adventism and of the country. Let's say the universe. Sometimes it's in a simple word like reprobates. Where on the one hand you might disagree, on another hand it might even be that a speaker would make a mistake. It could be that they are absolutely wrong, but we went to reprobate. And in this second principle, I challenge myself. Rumors inevitably engage in exaggeration. Well, I'm not sure you're getting it, so I'm going to double down with some exaggeration. Rumors, to have any traction, have to have some level of truth. You're building a wall. Well, yes, he is building a wall. Because you want to be king. Well, I am governor. Take a little truth, salt it with some exaggeration, bathe it in anonymity, and then just keep pumping it up. And then this. It's actually one of the ways you can exaggerate. Rumors conveniently ignore context. Sometimes the most powerful piece of a rumor is what you chose to leave out that would have changed everything about how you understand what it is that's happening. Partial quotes. Focusing on one truth over the package of all truth. I'm going to guess, sometime or another, you've been subject of a rumor. It's probably a blessing if you don't know that that's true. I say probably because you can get hurt even when you don't know it. Dare I say, if you're a breathing human being, I'm going to guess you've been a part of sharing a rumor. That I have actually dropped my guard to this little challenge and been a participant in the enemy's attack on somebody else. And you may think to yourself, well, this only goes toward our treatment of godly people. No. In fact, I'm going to suggest to you that this kind of talk, this kind of language, it's all calculated to tear things down. This is what Sanballat and Tobiah and Geshem, this is what they wanted to do, is this thing is out of control. They're going to get too much power. We need to stop it. We need to back it up. We need to tear it down. Let's tear it down by the threat. And by the way, they know back in Ezra's time, this very kind of rumor mongering had worked and gotten the king to say, you're probably right. Let's not let them build. It's effective when swords are not. It can go where fists will not. And people who would never in their life strike somebody across the face will stab them with words in the back. And it is a tactic of the enemy of Jesus Christ. Ephesians. Do you recall this in the 4th chapter, Lich? 4th chapter. Don't let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths. And some of you might think, well, he's talking about football at a Sabbath potluck. That's what's going on there. No. He's referring to saying some kind of spicy joke. Well, the good news is Paul didn't stop the sentence there. So what was he talking about? What did he mean? While those other things could have been a concern to him, that's not what he's concerned about here. He says, but only what is helpful for building others up. Don't let unwholesome talk come out of your mouth. What is unwholesome talk? That stuff that tears others down. It doesn't matter if they deserve it. It doesn't matter if they're theologically incorrect. It doesn't matter if they are the enemy himself. Jesus had strong words to say about what is true, but he was passionate about this thing that he says, you know how they'll know that you are my disciples? It is in that you love. Can you imagine? If in our community, our reputation was, hey, look, the Seventh-day Adventists, they're kind of quirky, a little weird. I do not get half of what they're talking about. I don't know. And some of the stuff they eat and won't eat, I'm puzzled. But this I know, you will never, ever find a Seventh-day Adventist Christian from the Collegedale Church that will tear you down by their language. It won't happen. Lord God, help us. Help us. Interestingly, Proverbs suggests that there are 6 things. Actually, I love that having written this, they could have just corrected it. But no, I want you to see the thinking that goes, 6 things the Lord did. Well, actually, no, 7. 7 things. 7 things that God detests. What are they? Here we go. 1, haughty eyes. Looking at other people as if you are better than them. We could go there for a while. A lying tongue. Hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked schemes, feet that are quick to rush to evil, a false witness who pours out lies, and a man who stirs up dissension among brothers. And if you counted 7, you're right. If you counted 3 overtly are things that happen right here, you're correct. And 2 others that really strongly suggest this would be a helpful tool. You know what God despises? Well, we'll give you a list, but just know this. Half of it is stuff you say. Ooh, Lord God, help us. Bless us as we make our way through our understanding. It is easy to understand this when you are the subject of an attack, but what about when you are the attacker? And you feel justification. There is no justification for the Christian to engage in the things that God despises. By the way, you might be taking this to say, these are tools of the devil, so you shouldn't even be discouraged by them. I tried to just throw that letter in the trash. And there were a bunch of other things that were going on. I'll admit to you, because it was sent in the mail, I checked to see, do we have any active members who are from the town, even where this came from, quite a ways away? Because it's not easy to let it go. Here's the truth. When rumor works its way into your life, we can say all we want, but it takes a toll. It's painful, it's distracting, and it wears you down, period. So, if you're the brother or sister, spiritually or by biology, of someone who is bearing up under the rumors of others, please put your shoulder in there. Put your shoulder in and lift some of the weight. But if you're the one struggling under that weight, I would say to you, you're not alone. It appears to me Nehemiah felt it too. For he will say this, they were trying to frighten us, thinking their hands will get too weak for the work and it will not be completed. And so I prayed. Now, Lord God, strengthen my hands. It's almost as if to say they thought it would weaken our hands and then we wouldn't finish, and it weakened our hands, and so we prayed. If it's not weakening his hands, why does he need to pray? This may not be quite right, but I'm going to suggest to you my theory, and that is that he felt it. That it wears on you, and that he and you and I, we need the presence, the Spirit of God to lift us amidst the rumor mill that happens at the attack of the devil. Oh, may it not be that we're doing this to ourselves. And then there's the third attack. So one day, verse 10, one day I went to the house of Shemaiah, son of Daliah, the son of Mehetabel. You can question whether I've pronounced this correctly. But Shemaiah was shut up in his own home. He wasn't able to come out for one reason or another. And he called Nehemiah. Nehemiah comes. This is a Jewish man. This is someone a part of the inside. This is a member of the church. Says, hey, come over here, please. And he does. Maybe as a part of the priesthood. Seems like he has access to the temple. And he says, let us meet in the house of God inside the temple, and let us close the temple doors, because men are coming to kill you. By night they are coming to kill you. And we know that's not God's plan for you. So come here. Let's talk. And now I'd like for you, and by the way, you can make the argument that he's actually not working on the wall while he's having this conversation with Shemaiah, but he's willing to go because it is a part of the family of God. And the appeal is, look, you're going to be, this is for safety reasons. Come and we'll stash you in the temple. Now, there are a bunch of ways that the word temple gets used, but the clear implication here is in the spaces where you could be hidden. And that's a place, those are places that someone who is not a priest is not supposed to go. So what's this attack? It's the attack of compromise. And what do I mean by compromise? It's taking hold of something God has promised in a way that he has asked us not to do. How do you handle it? When the thing you've been praying to God for becomes available in the wrong way. How did Jesus handle it in the wilderness? Just bow to me, and this whole plan of yours to save the human race, boom, in a heartbeat, it's yours, it's done. Make some bread, do a miracle, leap from the temple. No, I'm not going to take a shortcut. We can't confuse the fulfillment of a promise of God with everything that might help us take advantage of it in terms of compromise. I'm going to suggest to you that for the followers of Christ, the end cannot be used to justify the means. The means must fall in line with the Word of God. I've had conversations with somebody praying over whether they should go with the woman they're having an affair with instead of their spouse. What's God's real will here? I'm like, look, I'm not sure you should be asking God about more on this subject. David, you recall the story, will be in a cave. He's been promised that he will be king, and he is there running away from King Saul in a cave out in the desert, and he's got his band of warriors in that cave with him. And about this point, King Saul, no other way to talk about it, has to go to the bathroom. He goes into the cave all by himself, and in his most vulnerable moments, those surrounding the supporters of King David say this to him: look and see how God has blessed you and is fulfilling his promise to you. And David says this: I do believe in God's promise, but I cannot justify laying claim to his promise in the wrong way. So Nehemiah says, no, if I'm going to be saved from this threat of death, it's going to have to be by some other way. I'm not going to do what God has shared I ought not do. I'm not going to violate this thing to get the other thing that God has promised. I'm not going to do it. So I wonder if, in fact, there had been a verse in Hebrews 11, I wonder what it might say. Amidst this particular chapter, these three attacks on the calling of Christ, those attacks of distraction and rumors and compromise, I wonder if it isn't typified, Bob, if it isn't typified by this little verse, I am doing something with Jesus now. I cannot come down. I wonder if it might read, by faith. Amidst it all, Nehemiah remained on the wall. God is calling you, calling you, calling you. Yes to your personal salvation, but yes to the kingdom cause. And you will come under attack for it. You will be distracted by things that are obvious and things that are not. You will suffer. I am certain of it. Rumors, if you are truthfully following Jesus Christ. And there will be compromises that are laid at your doorstep to even accomplish what God has promised. Oh, could I, by faith, remain at the wall? What if our staying engaged in what Jesus is doing is indeed the main thing? What if the main thing isn't even your personal salvation, but rather your connection with a God who chooses to save you in the midst of his story? That the main thing is your willingness to walk wherever he walks, to live in hope even when others say it's never coming, to walk through pain and difficulty, possibly loneliness. Remain. Lord God, thank you for our family. We thank you for the fact that the weather hasn't gotten so bad here, but we know in the midst of that prayer that it has gotten bad elsewhere, and that people suffer right now in ways that we do not. We understand that you came not just for us, you came for humanity to save us, to rescue us all, and asked us to participate, to play a part, to play a role. And for some of us, maybe we have only been thinking about ourselves. Lord God, switch on our hearts to take on the heartbeat of Jesus Christ. And as we ask for it, we know we need to ask for your strength. Strengthen our hands. Help us to stand beside you in what you're doing. Even when we're not too sure we know how to do it, help us to stand with you, to stay, to remain, to not come down from the wall. In the name of Jesus, we claim your presence and your promise. Amen and amen. We're going to just have a little tiny bit of music as we close up today, and I'm going to dismiss you. You may remain seated as I come. I know it's not live music, but there will be a little bit of music that will be playing, and then I'll dismiss you by row. Love to say hello. I know there are some friends who are here uniquely today. That's an awesome thing, but there may be somebody I don't know. You're welcome to come introduce yourself to me as well.